Hello there, welcome to Heart Explained Therapy. And now, what I would like to attempt to articulate is the different layers of life that actually exist, and my personal theory towards the end, but I think the starting point most people will agree to. But I've adapted it to see something in my own eyes that just feels like it's important to tell people. And you might not be at this stage yet, but you will definitely be if you're watching self-help videos. You'll be looking for distractions, and I want to start this by talking about reality. What is, first of all, reality to you? Now remember, your reality is going to be different to mine, and if we get 50,000 people and we all ask them lots of questions, we're never always going to see the same reality or the same perspective, if you like. So it seems that reality is our ability to perceive. That is, to, let's take pain. It's quite clear to me that the most obvious reaction of a human being is to avoid pain and suffering, and it seems that we distract ourselves with anything we can. Now, if we take away morals and values, the horrible, crazy madman that kills people, to a logical person, it's a mental illness, it's a mental health, but they still are going towards something that makes them feel comfortable. They are still running away from a pain and suffering, and unfortunately they have learned to project this into the external world. This is very important to understand, and if you want to look into this more, I would suggest you go for the Carl Jung, who explained about this sort of shadow side. But it's not saying that this place is okay, but it's saying that there is definitely a reality out there where we can perceive morals and values. We can perceive what to do, and these morals can be good or they can be bad and morally wrong, we would say. Now, what first sort of happens is you grow up with your environment creating the person that you are. You have a sort of limited education, some better than others, some have more opportunities than others, but we're all sort of only the limit of our environment. And with the environment, I'm talking about people, family, teachers, education, the class of people you might be with. This goes into the world, and now you are this person that's kind of unconscious with this egoic mind, and you've been created. Now, it's not the be-all and end-all of reality. If you, and normally I would say that it's through pain or suffering, or if something was to come happen where you need to shift to a new belief, you could expand awareness through intelligence or friends talking about a certain subject. This expansion of awareness could lead you to have more knowledge. So this unconscious you that was created has took on more information, and your intelligence has kind of gone up a notch. Now, if you are really in pain, you will definitely be searching for things, and if you find something that makes you comfortable, you will stay there. It might not even be a positive thing. It could be drinking, it could be avoiding anything really. It will make you comfortable, but it might be based on fears, and it might not be the actual thing to do, but this is what's out there in the world. It's what 95% of the world is made of. This unconscious person that has limited intelligence, and I suppose they don't really know it, but they're sucked into a matrix and they're not quite awake yet. Now, if you've heard of the term spirituality, you will say that these people seem to come from a loving perspective, and they seem to be basically being able to go through pain and give back to somebody else. Now, if you take the perspective of what we just said about this perceiving reality, you see that they have the possibility to perceive reality too, like the egoic mind, and they choose to give something back. They choose to help others. They choose to preach the ideology because they've been in that egoic mind pain before. Now, I think what you really fail to sort of get with many people is the fact that you're very incapable of ever passing a message on to anybody. To really pass a message on, the other person has to be open-minded and willing to understand your opinion. So it's very difficult for, let's say, a spiritual person to show a egoic mind person that they're in the wrong. And in a way, they probably would even admit that they can't do that. So they have their own little group, their own little cult. Now, for me, when you pass through the egoic mind, I got to the spiritual point and the loving point, and it tells you to get rid of negativity, and it tells you to avoid people that would bring you down. And because you feel quite high and good, this seems like the best thing to do. But for me, a person who likes to help people, I realise that cutting negative people off, you're actually cutting off the people that probably need your help the most. So to me, this didn't sound like a spiritual idea. So I managed to carry on searching past this point, even though it gave me a great feeling of love and made me content in my life. But I wanted to make sure that it was correct and truthful. And I discovered that for this whole sort of connected love to exist, where you definitely get to the point where you realise that there is no colour, there is no ethnic group, there is no class system. We are all just the same. We have the same minds, we have the same hearts, we have the same feelings. Nothing is different in here from what you experience. You probably just have a different egoic story. I realised that there is something that's different. I can be loving, kind and helpful, and if you're not in that egoic mind stage or in that spiritual stage which doesn't care about loving back, which can happen, then I realise that the transaction still doesn't take place. So that one collectiveness that is supposed to exist in this place of love has to have like-minded people. You have to have people who believe in that story, because a transaction doesn't come back to that poor man, strange man, evil man. And the reason why it doesn't come back is they don't have the knowledge, the experience. They haven't felt this love, so they don't really know what your love is all about. If anything, your love might make them angry. And some people can actually see toxic behaviour as love, because that's all they've ever known is toxic behaviour. A behaviour that makes them worthless. And in that worthless place, they have worth, because that's all they've known. So this brings about a huge dilemma. It means that your mindset now has gone back to a searching, scanning sort of program, looking for something to basically keep you sane and hope that there's purpose and love still left in the world. And what you stumble across is that in fact the morals and values that you have and everybody else have, and I would say belief systems, is actually the very gift of God that we talk about. The gift of God is your ability to choose based on these morals and values. And I looked back and thought that people in pain made the wrong choices, and people with love made the right choices. But you actually see is that the egoic people were unconscious, undereducated people, and the spiritual people were also unconscious and uneducated. They just managed to have a feeling that made them feel and was in such a good place from their own pain that they was able to at least stay on the right tracks of the law, for instance. So what I realised was it wasn't really love. It wasn't really love that created love and sort of bad pain creating evil. It seems to be that it's intelligence that seems to be very important. And what is intelligence? Now, I'm not talking about the intelligence that you know of, where you memorise or sort of learn information to the point where you can repeat it. I realised that true intelligence was just understanding these processes, these human processes that take part, that basically take part in your life. And at first, you're very unconscious to it, and it's not in your control. And this is why you have bad relationships and you feel pain, and why you believe you had good luck and bad luck, and why things work out for everybody else but not you. In this higher intelligence, you realise this intellectual place. Bad and good happen, but it's an equal opportunity for anybody else. And it's in fact your reaction that is important. Your reaction actually creates positivity. Your reaction actually creates love. So I realised that this actually higher intelligent mind, not one that just not the memory that stores information, not just reading words, but feeling and experiencing life, that can actually do away with that love and get to a higher intelligence to say, okay, why do we need that love? Why do we need morals and values? Why does the egoic mind sleep easily at night but the spiritual mind doesn't? Where does this pain really come from? And what you see and understand is your imagination is creating everything. And fortunately, you have the ability to create an alternative reality. Now, this alternative reality is very important because if you think back to the Jews in the Nazi war camps, this perception of altering their reality made some people survive. People incapable of having this faith or having the ability to hone into this imagination would unfortunately suffer and die. Now, it's not that the ex-prisoners did not suffer really bad events. They were there, they existed right there, and everything happened to their body and in some sense their mind. But there was capable of breaking their mind away and going to a higher place. Now, this place they would describe as love. And the reason I believe that this description is love is because of just the most amazing sort of human natural instinct that you can have, is the ability to perceive a different reality. Because I would argue that if you took life at face value, you would see that it's a lot of pain and suffering, not getting your emotional needs met, not being the reality that you perfectly want, that you've dreamt about. It doesn't weigh up with this imaginative reality. So perceiving an alternative reality seems to be something that is completely natural to the human mind. Now, I'm not saying this was our basically our survival instincts hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I very much doubt that we were able to hunt the saber-toothed tiger and have a belief in an alternative reality that we were doing something else, because I'm sure that we probably would have got killed. However, I could also imagine a place where this alternative reality or this imagination did really help us to create the tool to kill the saber-toothed tiger, for instance, to build the shelter that made more people have a chance of surviving through the cold or the wet weather. So the imagination seems to be really the master, the God. Now, what's the difference between love and imagination? Well, I said that love for me can blinker you sometimes, and I think it blinkers you in this reality. For me, if I truly go out there with the naivety of love, I will try and help and be there for every single human being that I bump into. I will try to feel their pain and get into their heads and try and nudge them to a safety sort of position in life. And that's not true reality. Even though it may be true with all my knowledge, it is not true in their reality. Now, what this intelligence does is makes you realise that they are believing in a belief system that they are completely unconscious and uneducated in. And there is nothing that you can do about it. You don't have to feel pain from it, because this pain doesn't really exist. The only thing that exists is the imagination that you can use any time. Now, what this does is actually makes you realise the same process as the love spiritual process, that you are definitely connected to everybody. But until they get to this stage, they will never be able to harness the beauty of this imaginative world that you exist in. So unfortunately, what you see is that even though you are one large organism going towards a place of what you perceive to be comfort, you see, just like that you are not perfect from head to foot, that not everything is exactly the way that you want, that there is a process taking place that happens to be like this for a reason. Now, you could say an unconscious, undereducated reason, and you could say that your job is to educate. But this intelligence, there's a reason why everything is going the way that it's going. It is evolution's plan that is taking place, and in a way it is consciousness plans that are taking place. So it's not really my problem to solve or to perceive a different reality. I can have morals and choose morals not from love but from intelligence, from higher intellect. And remember about that intelligence. I'm not talking about the intelligence that the world knows is intelligence. It's not about that intelligence that you can just learn in a book. It's learnt from experience. Now, you could say emotional intelligence, but I would say it's past that, because I know that emotions don't exist, and even the words that say the words of emotion don't exist, and it's only creativity and imagination. And unfortunately, that doesn't have any morals or values. It is merely a process going towards an end point. It's expanding, it's getting quicker, and I believe that love and spiritual people believe that this consciousness is trying to live through them. I'm under the impression that it could, with this intellectual knowledge, it could actually be living through us. It could be trying to die through us, or it could be merely trying to survive. And living and surviving is two different things. And I would argue that this one organism is at the moment surviving. And there's a place where we can die, and there's a place that we can live. I don't believe that this consciousness has the capability of being spread around to everybody to make us live in this eternal world that we believe so. It could be an egoic eternity, but that egoic eternity, for my perception of the future, is going to be plugged into artificial intelligence and not really life at all. It's going to be a sort of symbiotic process. But that's where we came from. We've actually been a symbiotic process probably 3 or 4 times now, if you go back to the interactions with different evolutionary processes of the past. So this higher intellectual is the be end all and end all, and it's got no morals and values. You choose them yourself. Now you could say this is negative, but if you've got good morals, it's not a problem, is it? If you've got bad morals in this place, then it's very bad. But I think to gain this intelligence, you couldn't get bad morals. For some reason, this intellectual path that opens up to you goes through a process that strips away every negative and bad moral, and the same with the positive ones as well, because you give up on all concepts, so really there's nothing left there. And it's the light of consciousness, and it just makes you very creative. It makes you have an ability to interact with people and see the thousands of alternative perspectives that love and certain intellectual sort of footholds in belief systems actually blinker you from seeing, actually blindfold you from seeing. And I think this is important to understand, and it's definitely a process that you may have to take if you suffer really bad with mental health. This is what awaits for you.